Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and excited to welcome back our next guest. He's a Catholic theologian by day, Instagram personality, crux stationalis by night. Jacob Stein. Welcome back, Jacob. I know I messed up your screen name, your handle there, but welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That is the best pronunciation of crux stationalis you've had yet, Keith. So I guess I just need to keep on coming on, discussing papal documents and all the issues that are happening in Rome.
And one day I'll get it. One day I'll get it right.
Yes. But I wish I was only an Instagram reality by night. It seems to be something that actually consumes you day and night and 24/7. But I think we're learning. I think a lot of the Catholic realities that are on social media are learning more and more the balance, because this topic sort of enters into what we're going to speak about just now. We're going to be speaking about the norms, these new norms which just came out from the Vatican to advise how to proceed in the discernment of alleged supernatural phenomenons. It's been spoken about to discuss Marian apparitions, but it also goes beyond that. It's just supernatural phenomenon in general. And if you read it, it sounds kind of, it draws some dire conclusions, but we always have to sort of consider why that's happening, because we have to look at how the document is approaching issues. And then we have to realize that it's always keeping them in a balance. And it has to be very kind of strict on these issues, because they probably happen more often than we might understand or we might think. The people who are purporting to have supernatural phenomenon happen, whether it be a vision of Our Lady or some saint or some allocution of any which way. And the reason I think the church had to update norms, which the last norms happened in 1978. Yeah, 1978. So this is just a clarification, because a lot has changed in the way that we communicate since 1978.
Yeah.
And in some ways the church is sort of kind of behind the times. And in some ways the church is always completely fashion forward. Always, because we can kind of divine why that's this way. It's because the church is guided by the Holy Spirit. And we just celebrated Pentecost. We're celebrating a beautiful feast today and Sunday for Corpus Christi. And even we can think, what if Corpus Christi happened today? What if the miracle of the Eucharist manifesting and changing the accidents of the Eucharist as well? What if that happened today in a small little town in Italy? What would be the reaction? It'd immediately be online. Yeah. And so the church has set this document up to give us boundaries for our own protection and for our own, just to kind of warn us of the dangers that can arise with the use of social media, especially in the communication of things. I mean, it's beautiful that I'm in Rome, you're in the Southwest, I don't know who else, where everyone is that participates in this show. You have listeners from all over, on the radio, online. It's amazing. It's amazing that we have these great means of communication, but we're also kind of not made for this. And the communication in the church is not made for this. We're made to hear Christ's voice, who is the very word himself being spoken. And that has to happen on a very tangible way. Houston, Florida, Illinois, Texas. I'm getting a list of all your places right now. That's great. And, and hopefully I actually have some friends just down the street listening as well. So you have listeners also in Italy. And so when we look at this sort of document, some people might approach it in a very negative way, because the statements can seem very negative. But it gives us sort of positive statements and negative statements to be considered. And you can kind of already imagine what they're going to be.
Right.
But as I said,
I was just about to say, like, you mentioned having a balance with like online and like in-person stuff. And I feel like, I'm about to throw my phone against the wall sometimes, because it's just over the top. You see some videos and it could be about, this miracle. And because we've been so hit hard with like, the fake stuff, fake news that you're like, is this, I can't even, this isn't even, is this real? And then some people are like, this is incredibly real. And then, later comes out that it wasn't really true or factual, and then they feel duped. And so, yeah, it's very interesting that the church has kind of seen this and put something in place. But what has the public response been like over in Rome, if any?
Well, shortly after this document came out, another news cycle came. So you can imagine that there wasn't much discussion. I even had to deep dive into a website to find, just one of the good, faithful reporting websites to find a sort of summary of the document, just to help me sort of keep everything straight and make my job a bit easier, because we have these great resources again. But even using Marian apparitions as a search topic, they weren't coming up for me. And this newest article that I was looking for, because I knew someone had to write this article. And so it's just interesting how even when I'm looking precisely for what I wanted to look for, which in this document, which came out a week ago, I'm unable to find it. So you can imagine the contrary, that we, as you said, we're just beaten with information, and people do get duped. And that's where we can see the wisdom and the charity of the church to protect us as a mother, to ensure that what we're focusing on is not just these miraculous things, which could be true or couldn't be true, or these phenomenon which are happening, which could very much help the faith of people, but they can be very destructive. And I think we even see this with approved apparitions in the life of the church. People put all their eggs in one basket with this Marian devotion or that Marian devotion, and even some which over the years have been suspect. And the church gives us those guidelines that some people are stubborn, don't want to listen to them, just like children are with their mother. And it's caused problems, or it causes, as this document says, a sectarian mindset, where this reality, if you're not a devotee of this apparition or this apparition, then somehow you're less Catholic, or you're less understanding. You don't have all the Gnostic wisdom that is needed to be the greatest Catholic ever. And the church is like, no, that's not what it's all about. These things are meant to help us. They're not meant to divide us. They're not meant to be a sort of exclusive club either. And so we get 4 positive statements in this document, where it just says, which are kind of obvious. The third one that I mentioned is this, actually that's in the negative list, the whole sectarian mentality. But in the positive list, we have to look at the credibility and the good reputation of the persons who claim to be recipients of the events, which is just kind of a no-brainer. Right. And then we question the doctrinal orthodoxy of what's being presented in the messages. And then the church has to determine the unpredictable nature of the phenomenon. So that, as opposed to something that's contrived by peoples. And then the most important on this positive list, besides the doctrinal orthodoxy, is the fruits that it bears, the fruits of Christian life, including a spirit of prayer, conversions, vocations to the priesthood and religious life, acts of charity, as well as sound devotion and abundant and constant spiritual fruits. And this has been coming up in conversation with all of the indulgences for the Jubilee year, which are coming up as well. Because we wonder, why does the church even do this? Why does the church give us this opportunity when even today I can receive an indulgence, tomorrow I can receive an indulgence? But the church is always reminding us again and orienting us to Christ, to the interior conversion of our hearts, which is a daily struggle. And so we take on this whole year of indulgences to just kind of, as we do with social media, beat us with all the information, smack us in the face with, hey, you can get an indulgence. Hey, we're giving you this great gift of peace and forgiveness and wiping away of the punishment of your sin. So in the same way with these Marian document, the church is just sort of beating us over the face, smacking us again to let us know. And the important thing here with this document is now all of the power resides in the Pope to declare something as a supernatural phenomenon, whereas before it was allowed by the bishops who had to observe it, by the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith, who was always involved but in the sort of discernment of these events, but now in a more explicit way. Now we know it's a public thing that the dicastery for the doctrine of faith is involved, and then the only positive statement can be, this has no error. It doesn't say it's a supernatural phenomenon. The Pope would have to come in and say, this is a supernatural phenomenon. So that's what we're dealing with in this reality, just a sort of contrasting with the social media way of relating. The church is taking a slower step and saying, no, we're not going to respond, in a split second to what's happening in the world. We have to kind of think about it and pray about it and consider it with these criterion.
Wait, so no knee-jerk reaction like all of us do on social media?
Yeah, well, I hope you don't, and I hope I don't have knee-jerk reactions on social media.
Only
we're going to have to talk about
section.
social media. Yeah, we'll have to talk about social media in the after show.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jacob. We can certainly find you on Instagram and on YouTube at Crux Statianalis. Oh man, I just ruined that even more. Crux Statianalis. At Crux Statianalis. It's all in Latin. But you can find him at
Stationalis.
Crux Statianalis. There we go.
There
Thank
you
you
go.
so much for joining, Jacob. And that's it. That's it for Morning Joy, where truth matters. Jacob just mentioned not too long ago that, yes, we do have an after show clubhouse. It's almost like a debrief of the entire show. And you are invited, formally invited. If you're streaming from Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, X, stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll be here just in a moment. But for those listening on the radio, if you're going to be staying for the Holy Mass, please pray for us. We'll take all the prayers we can get, and we'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern, here on Morning Joy, where truth matters. But if you're hanging with us, stay tight. We're going to talk more about the topics, dive deeper into it on our after show clubhouse. But if we're parting ways, God bless and make it a joyful day. We'll see you tomorrow.
This has been Morning Joy, where truth matters, hosted by Keith Downey. Take some joy with you today. Visit grnonline.com/joy to listen again, share a segment, or answer the question of the day. That's grnonline.com/joy.